Hello and welcome to this midweek episode of the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast, brought to you by Seat Tires. This is DJ from London, and I'm joined, as always, for this midweek episode by Ashwin from Cincinnati. Ashwin, how's it going, man? There's been some pretty grim updates coming out of the IPL 2021. How are you coping with all of that?
Yeah, it's been a tough week, right? Obviously, very fortunate to be here in living in the US where cases aren't as bad, but obviously, really feeling for everything that's going on in India. We've talked about that a little while before. So, to all of our listeners who are in India or have family, loved ones in India, please stay safe. If there's anything at all we can do to help, please reach out. We, not sure how much or what we can, but we would love to do whatever we can. But yeah, tough week, man. We recorded Sunday I think partway through the Delhi Punjab game is when Varun and I were recording. Match ended, Delhi won top of the table, so much euphoria. And then literally less than 24 hours later, the news started coming. Then, of course, the first game on the Monday game got postponed, or the Monday game got postponed, basically. And they said, all right, that's fine. It was one team, but you kind of knew, right? You kind of knew that if it's infected one team, it means it's in the bubble. And so obviously, yeah, it's just crazy to think that 3 days after us recording this gleeful episode where Delhi was doing well and the IPL was at the 50% mark, suddenly now the IPL's been postponed indefinitely. Had to make the call, but it's been a tough week.
Yeah. I mean, it's been slightly surreal, I have to say, for everyone involved. I mean, it's pretty grim down on the ground there in India at the moment. Cases hopefully have stabilized, and hopefully they're going to start dropping soon. But you talked briefly about the cricket right now. Given that this is going to be probably the last cricket we're going to see over the next month or so, maybe we should touch briefly upon that game, that the Delhi versus Punjab game, right? Ashwin, tell our listeners what actually happened in that game. There were some pretty impressive performances, right? Like one of the Seat boys, Mayank Agarwal, got 99 of 58, which was a pretty impressive performance.
Yeah, I mean, fully accepting how weird it is to talk about it right now, we should still just, stay true to our format. So we will talk quickly about Delhi versus Punjab. Punjab batted first, made 166 for 6, which the symmetry was nice, but it was all Mayank, right? Mayank Agarwal started batting a bit slowly, picked up his run rate, and then went, berserk at the end, just ending on 99. So sad to see him miss out on a century. First game as captain, remember, KL Rahul was out with appendicitis, which again feels like so long ago and like 25 news cycles ago, but it wasn't that long ago. So Mayank came back into the side, was captain. You and I had actually talked about if Rahul got dropped as captain and still played, who would come in? We said maybe Mayank, maybe Shami, maybe Gale. And of course, the next episode it happened. Not that he got dropped as captain, but he was out injured. So we wish him all the best of luck. But Punjab made 166. Mayank looked outstanding. Rabada finally started to look like he was getting some form for Delhi, picked up 3 for great wicket of Chris Gale. Chris Gale hit him for a big 6 on the next ball. What a low, swerving, dipping full toss just castled his off stump. And, it's always much more impactful or
No, it was
fun.
both stumps, the middle
Yeah.
stump and the off stump,
But
both went in different directions.
when it starts twirling and going afar, that's like reminiscent of Alan Donald in the 90s. And that's a special moment for a fast bowler, I think. Getting bowled is good enough. But when the stump goes flying out of the ground and twirling for a little bit, that's special. But I mean, clinical as ever, the Delhi Capitals. Either Shaw or Dhawan has stepped up every game. In this case, they both did well. Shaw made 39 of 22 balls. Dhawan anchored again, got us across the line. Not much to say, finishing with 2.5 overs to spare. Punjab continues to look a little bit weak. Delhi continues to look strong. Went to the top of the table, and now we don't exactly know if that'll matter or if or when it'll count for anything. But that was the match. Interesting. One of the few matches where a losing player got the man of the match award in Mayank, because well deserved. He played great, but team came up short that day.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, as you say, it feels like it was a really long time ago all of this took place. The rest of the Punjab team just didn't kick off, right? It was like 67 of 62 balls that the rest of the team scored, which is just not good enough. It almost felt like Mayank had taken on the skin of KL Rahul almost, right? Like if Rahul was out with appendicitis or whatever, Mayank came in, scored all the runs, and still ended up on the losing side. So it was just more of the same for Punjab King fans. Maybe they'll come up with the. Can they change name mid-season? Do you think?
I don't know
If
what
the
are they going to
IPL
come
does
up with
continue,
next, right? What they've gone from Kings 11 Punjab to Punjab King. Maybe it'll become
the
Punjab
Bhangra
11
boys,
Kings.
the Bhangra
Oh,
boys,
that's
or
a
something.
different.
I don't
No,
know.
they're not that creative. They went from
The
Kings
double
11 to Punjab
Bs.
King. That's it. All right, that's got to be it.
Okay, so and I like the way you plug the fact that Delhi went top of the table multiple times. So we're going to keep plugging that as we go forward. But then I
I mean,
shouldn't. I
that's the
mean,
running joke or meme, right? All right, if the IPL is cancelled, give it to the team who's at the top. Give the
at
award
least we would
to
have
the
won
player.
half an IPL, right? Give us half a trophy. Just give us the top.
I will take it.
We're
I'll
okay
take
with that.
half the trophy, even if you saw it right down the
We'll
middle. I'll
share.
take
Let's
the
share
left
it with
half.
RCB. Let's give them the other half.
RCB
We're
wasn't
done,
even
right?
second; they were third because of net run rate. So yeah,
And
anyway,
CSK doesn't need any. CSK doesn't need any trophies
they
anymore.
have plenty.
But anyway, we'll talk about all of that. I mean, yeah. But the next day, Ashwin, and you spoke briefly about it. Varun and Warrior tested positive. The news kind of broke. It was sort of justified on the basis that Varun had left the bubble to go get a scan on his shoulder, so the integrity of the bubble was still intact, and so for that one day we were like, okay, this is a temporary blip, and maybe the IPL will carry on. But come Tuesday morning, particularly, you heard of the CSK cases, Lakshmipati Balaji, and now I believe Mike Hussey as well. You heard of the Delhi Capitals cases. You heard of Mishra ji with COVID, and you heard of Riddhiman Saha. Now, Ashwin, we have to ask these questions because they are serious questions to ask. Saha had apparently been isolating for the last 5 days. He was within the bubble. Now, the whole point about this bubble is that, and it goes back to the Ravi Shastri meme about bubble, 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 bubble. The whole point of that bubble is to create an environment where COVID can neither come in nor go out because you don't have interaction with the rest of the world. If players are getting COVID within that bubble, that means that the integrity of the bubble has been compromised. Once that happened, they said that the IPL was suspended for a week while they tried to work out other options, hold the whole thing in Mumbai, um, work out whether you could rejig the schedule. But within hours, Ashwin, on Tuesday this week, it was indefinitely suspended. Now, let's talk through all of that. It's really weird. It's happened with other leagues. It's happened with the PSL, obviously, twice now, I think. Um, but first, let's talk about the reaction to the IPL being suspended. Of course, cricket fans were disappointed, but there was this weird sort of glee that some people on Twitter and social media seemed to have, that the IPL and the BCCI had failed to conduct um, a sporting event. I mean, how tone deaf do you have to be where it's such a grim situation on the ground, whereas you're trying to score your little political points on that front? So, what did you make of the reaction to the IPL being suspended, first off?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say from to each their own, I guess. But from my point of view, exactly as you said, it's very incredibly tone deaf, right? There's a time and a place to look back, or what we call in the corporate world like post-event analysis, or like, just look back and understand, okay, what went wrong, like how do we learn from it, how do we ensure it never happens in the future, and all that. But it just feels like in the immediate aftermath of making a very tough decision, when players are going through, I've been diagnosed, tested positive, when people are dying. Ashwin and Preeti had said 10, at least 10 family members of this tested positive. There's so much, there's just such an unfortunate situation in the country. So to use that as an opportunity to find glee, to me, feels incredibly insensitive and tone deaf. I understand it's not without merit when they're saying, hey, the BCCI should have had better checks and balances. They didn't do as well as they did in the UAE last year. They didn't manage hotels as well. They didn't manage the cities. Also, there's validity to all the arguments, right? But to express any sort of glee that, haha, I told you so, or BCCI, you thought you were too big to fail, it's not. Just doesn't feel right to me. I don't think that's what it's about. I think at this point, priority needs to be player safety. There were plenty of arguments on whether the IPL should have happened in the first place, whether it should have gotten suspended much earlier. Something we can get into, but yeah, disappointing to me.
And so let's get into that. I mean, I was sort of thinking of the Dale Steyn tweet, which kind of dug up a 1 month old comment by somebody saying, "Oh, at least the IPL is better than the PSL because at least you could complete the IPL." And then Dale Steyn has gone back now after having played in the IPL for years, gone back and dug that tweet up again and replied to it, which is it's just in poor taste. I mean, his own country, South Africa, is performing pretty poorly on the COVID side of it, and it's a human cost at the end of it. It's not about scoring points or whatever, whichever league is better. Who cares? I mean, there's a lot happening outside the field of play, so there needs to be a lot of sensitivity to that. But you mentioned some of the points I wanted to touch on, Ashwin, and the first one of these is, should the IPL have been cancelled earlier with the rise in cases? Now, when the IPL started back on, I think it was the 9th of April, right? There weren't those many cases in India. It was probably like something in the region of 20,000 cases a day or something like that, which, given the population, isn't that much, right? So, um, but with the rise in cases, did you think that it was left for too late on the basis that it was a distraction for a population that was otherwise dealing with something that was more gloomy and depressing, and the realities of the COVID situation being what they were dealing with?
Yeah, there's essentially two schools of thought, right? There's the school of thought that said it's insensitive to play sports and celebrate and do cricket and fantasy league and all this stuff while the country's going through a lot. And there's the second school of thought that said, hey, people are going through a lot. They're not getting out of their houses, all that. If you can secure a bio bubble, keep everybody safe, and allow people 4 hours a day, 3.5, 4 hours a day, more based on over rates from some captains. But if you can allow them a little bit of a break and something to just detach their mind, sit in front of the TV, watch, cheer for their team, there's incredible human value to that. I do understand that value. Look, I also understand the BCCI makes a lot of money, and I'm not naive enough to think there weren't other factors at play. But I believed that if we could secure a bubble and make it work, it was great to be able to do it for the country because it gave a lot of people something to look forward to and some just an excuse for some entertainment. The question of should it have been suspended earlier? Should we? I think a lot of this for me is intent and how much people knew when they knew. And you can start questioning, well, they should have known that there was a case 2 days earlier or 3 days earlier, one day earlier. To me, as long as the bubble was secure, I was supportive of continuing the IPL. The minute the bubble got breached, I knew this. We said this when they said, okay, Varun Chakravarti and Sandeep Warrior have gotten it, but they're going into isolation. Tomorrow's game will be suspended. The next will happen. That point, you knew the bubble's been breached. I knew. I said it to you guys. I think bubble's been breached. This is going to be really hard. And of course, that's what happened. So, all that said, as long as you can maintain a bio bubble, I'm supportive of it. They pulled it off last year in the UAE, very differently executed, but they pulled it out. This year the bubble got breached, and so they canceled it.
So let's pick up on that. So was it a mistake to hold it in India then? Having held it successfully in the UAE, right? Why was the need to, I mean, frankly, when I think back to it, man, like I think back to February, and I we saw those games in the Gujarat stadium, right? It was India, England, I think, and they let the crowds in. It was like 100,000 people or 75,000, whatever it was, and they were all kind of sat in each other's lap. And it was just, I mean, at that time, Ashwin, I don't know whether you remember, but like London was still in lockdown back then. Like it's only come out of a full lockdown last month. And so I was watching that, and there were no masks, and there was people kind of um, just, it felt like COVID was over. And was there that overconfidence that COVID, it was behind us, and we, India had beaten COVID and all of that stuff, which is why the UAE was not seen as an option? And was it a matter of pride and overconfidence bringing the IPL back to India almost?
Yeah, I don't think that's even a cricket thing necessarily. I think that's a broader thing with the country, right? In general, in Jan, Feb timing, there was lots of celebration. A lot of things opened back up. A lot of political rallies happened. And, I don't want to get into details of, politics. We're a cricket show. I, but for sure, you're absolutely in Jan, Feb timing, there was a belief that we had beaten this. And so that's why the stadium in Ahmedabad had half capacity, 75% capacity, almost nobody had masks on. That's why you started to see all of these things. And so I don't think that the answer to your question isn't necessarily just the cricket got complacent. I think society at large got a little complacent, and it's unfortunate. And you don't want to, like I said, you can sit here and point fingers and, oh, but we should have known better. It's easy to say that in hindsight. At 20,000 cases a day, I can see the merit to starting an IPL in India. I get the math. It makes sense. At 400,000 cases a day, it suddenly looks like a terrible decision. So it's unfortunate.
Yeah, but also they did. I mean, the last time they did it within 3 cities, but they're all in close proximity of each other, driving distance, right? with a super. I mean, there's a great article by ESPN Cricket Info. I think it's Nagraj Golapuri that's put it out there, which says the differences, sets out the differences and the stark ones as between the UAE and this time, where you've got kind of a traveling circus. You're changing cities. Why do we need to change cities? Was there any need to travel by air, come into contacts with security personnel, pick up the virus while traveling? There was so much stuff that went on, right? And it just, when you kind of think back on it, you're just like, maybe we should have done things differently. But you're right, whatever has been done, it's done. It's unfortunate it's been abandoned. There are bigger things going on in the country at the moment. I, for one, agree with you almost that sport does have the power to lift us when um it was pretty dark, to be honest. When January, February, March in the UK, it was dark and it was gloomy and it was raining and it was cold, and the only thing that kind of got me through those months of lockdown and isolation were watching India play Australia in Australia, that those heroics by Pant, and then the India England series, and talking about cricket, and I mean, hanging out with you guys once or twice a week, right? It gives you that. I mean, obviously, you know what's going on out there. You know what, and it gives you that little bit of escape, and it allows you to relent a little bit. I know you've personally also had uh, family members who've had COVID and things like that. So I don't know how you've felt about the IPL, particularly helping you through that, or whether it has even. But it's for me, I think cricket and sport generally, it allows you that little bit of escape, which was nice for me.
Yeah, I'm 100% agree. Nothing to add. It's what it did for many of us, right? When you're sitting at home, spending disproportionate amount of time at home, it becomes that much more important. So, fully agree. Very disappointing, obviously. Again, you want to look at the big picture. Just hope the country is able to find some path to recovery sooner. There's too much loss of life, too much damage being done. So, it was nice to have a little bit of a sport to give people a break. Also, the right call been taken now, I guess, as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And on that note, we'll go into a SEAT strategic safety timeout, as it's been rechristened by our friends at SEAT Tires. And we will see on the other half of the break. We'll talk about when the IPL can be completed, where the windows are. We'll talk about the people that may or may not see another IPL game. We'll talk about bubble fatigue. And in happier news, we'll give you a fantasy update and tell you who won the SEAT cricket bat for the month of April. So stay tuned, and we'll see you after this SEAT strategic safety timeout. Welcome back from that break, and you are still listening to the Edges and Sledges cricket tire. Edges and Sledges. Sorry,
That's a
I'm
pretty
getting
good
naughty.
one. No, keep going. You should leave that one in. That's a good blooper.
Welcome back from that SEAT strategic timeout, and you're still listening to the Edges and Sledges cricket podcast. Ashwin and I were just speaking about the IPL cancellation. But Ashwin, the next question on everyone's mind, right? And particularly as Delhi fans, and I'm sure the RCB fans and the CSK fans are thinking similarly, maybe not the SRH or KKR fans that much, is when we can complete this 14th edition of the IPL, Ashwin. Now, I've gone through the windows, I've gone through the calendar. I am of the very, very strong view that the rest of the IPL needs to be played fully as double headers. Double headers. We've got what, um, 2 weeks roughly of the IPL left, right? Play them all as double headers. Play them as a warm up to the World T20 in Sharjah, UAE, and Abu Dhabi and Dubai, and that's it. Wrap it up in 2021. That is literally the only window. England India finishes on I think September 14th, whereas the World Cup starts on the kind of back end of October. So I would say that's my favorite window. But did you think that we'll be able to complete it?
I mean, I don't
Firstly,
think. I hope we're able to complete it. Let's start there. I don't think there's an alternative to the proposal you said because there just aren't windows. Like we've talked over the years
no,
about how
there's
tight.
two.
What's the
There's
second one?
two other windows. One is after the World Cup, but I just think it's going to be really hard to keep people
Yeah,
in the bubble
I agree.
after the World Cup and get all the Indian players over and all of that stuff. And there's one in January next year, right, where India is going to South Africa. Now, if you push that back a little bit,
Hmm.
India might do, because there's a COVID situation ongoing in South Africa as well. They had a high number of cases and stuff. Maybe you could fit it in kind of January time.
Hmm.
But I don't see it happening in India for sure, because apparently there's a third wave that's likely to occur in November. Touch
Oh
wood,
gosh.
it
Yeah.
doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And they come through it with vaccinations and stuff. But I think pre-World Cup is where I see this
Yeah,
happening.
I mean, I agree with you. Obviously, January I think is far enough away that I don't even know if that is that considered completing this same IPL. Like that, so much change. It's almost 10 months, 8 months away, right? So it's far
It's
enough
the
away.
famous line, January tak mat puchna.
Yeah, there you go. That's it. That's it. This is all links back to MS somehow, doesn't it? Anyway, um, what was I going to say? Yeah, I think the September window is interesting, right? There's just logistical challenges with that too, right? Even if you play at the same venue over and over, etc. Basically, a doubleheader every day means teams are playing every other day, with many teams playing back-to-back days. So now you start to say, okay, that works if you have depth of squad of 25 people and you can sufficiently rotate through. But before the World Cup, are boards really going to want, even though it's only 31 games total, which is 7 or 8 games per team, each player will play 4 or 5 games across the 2 weeks. It's not that crazy, but is the BCCI going to want Jasprit Bumrah to be playing 7 games in 13 days ahead of a World Cup? Probably not, right? So how do you think about that balance? And so now the power struggle will come in. The who's more important, who calls the shot? Does the BCCI value the IPL slightly higher than it puts Team India player fatigue and stuff? I don't know. I doubt it, but that's where this will start to come in. So, short answer is I love the idea. Squeeze in a window before the World Cup. Every player for India, but also a ton of others get great match practice for the World Cup going in. But I, I have to say, I feels like it's a little bit unlikely.
So do you think it'll be afterwards, or are we actually contemplating an abandonment of an IPL,
What
which, yeah,
I
go on.
I was going to say, like, is the World Cup for sure going to happen?
Well, they'll do it in the UAE, right? It was proposed as a backup venue by the BCCI when they realized that it may not be able to happen in India anyway. So, and a lot of kind of other nations depend on money from world tournaments like the World T20, and it's already been pushed back once. So it was supposed to happen last year. You've got another one in Australia next year. So if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen at all, right? You're not going to find another window with everybody coming together. So which is why I kind of think that if everyone's converging on the same place, I think it seems like a natural fit, and maybe workload needs to be managed. Pitches will need to be managed as well. That's the other thing to think about. But if you think about it, last time around, the pitches really held up well over a 2 month tournament in those in kind of similar conditions, similar time of the year and stuff in the UAE. So I'm hoping that happens, because it would be an absolute shame to see an IPL abandoned. And for me, Ashwin, it does come back to that man MS Dhoni, because you do not, I mean, at least I don't know about you, but I do not want to see him go out of the game of cricket like this. I mean, it's definitely not from me on that front. It's just going to break my heart. I mean, watching MS Dhoni leave IPL cricket, what he's dominated for years, has masterminded a charge by CSK to the top of the table.
Yeah, but why do you assume this was his last season?
Now he's not going to play again. I'm
No, I
sure
don't think
he's
there's
not.
any. I don't. I
I'm
think
not
there's
sure he
people. He's
is.
gonna, like. Let's assume 2022 proceeds as normal at this point. There's a chance he plays. He's
Well,
not
I
really
don't think
doing
there is,
anything anyway.
because no,
His
but there,
strategic brain doesn't age, with his
yeah, but
body, so he's
there's
just
a
hanging
mega
on.
auction. Remember, there's a mega auction, so you've got to contract players for three
But if the
years, and
season
he.
gets abandoned, does the mega auction still happen, or does that get pushed another year?
Oh man,
So
there's
many
so many
permutations.
questions,
So many
so many
questions.
questions. Someone like Gale as well, right? Someone like Harbhajan Singh. All of these guys have been Raidu. I mean, 72 of 27. The guys just hit some form. All of these guys who we've seen for so many years lighting up the IPL. It will be an absolute shame to see all of these guys just sit out. But let's see if they can find a window. I'm pretty sure that the BCCI is racking its brains as hard as we are, right? So,
Probably
and
just a little bit slightly smarter people than us, working slightly harder than us, so they'll figure something
yeah, okay,
out.
that's kind of you. Anyway, bubble fatigue, Ashwin. In a way, has this the break is obviously extremely unfortunate, right? Like it's come for reasons which are out of everybody's control. it's just devastating to see what's going on in India. We've all got family back there, and it's worrying on a constant basis. But for the players, right? And you've seen Ashwin leaving the IPL earlier on. You've seen Zampa leave. There are worries about players getting back. I know the Mumbai Indians have chartered a plane for their foreign players to be sent back. Um, but bubble fatigue, man. It goes back to Ravi Shastri's bubble comment after the England series. These guys have been in a bubble since last year, last IPL, right? Septemberish. When did it start? September. That's nearly 9 months now. Um,
Yeah, look, it's not easy, right? That's the key thing is that we saw before the suspension as well, right? You had, who was it? Andrew Ty, Zampa, Kane Richardson, all decide they wanted to go home, right? Combination of bubble fatigue and fear for the COVID situation, fear for their families, etc. Then we saw Ravi Ashwin leave the bubble and go be close to his family, because you realize, like, we put all these folks on pedestals, but they're family people too. They're dealing with the crisis as much as everybody else is. They have concerns across the board too. So it's very easy to just say, like, oh well, you're living in a nice 5-star hotel and playing in the bubble, but it takes a toll on mental health. Like, it is very draining. It is very difficult to be away from family. It's very difficult to live in this bubble for 6 weeks of IPL, but 8-9 months maybe consecutively for those who play multiple formats. So I 100% feel for them. It was great that they were trying it, but 100% feel for them. And so I don't want to call it a blessing in disguise or anything like that, because of the reason that it's being canceled is because of something so horrific. But I'm sure the players will be happy to at least be getting out of the bubble, but to be close to families and essentially create their own bubbles and quarantine at home wherever they can, because that's what everybody needs to be doing.
Ashwin, was there ever a world where the IPL would have gone on after those COVID announcements? Could the BCCI have said the show must go on? And I mean, obviously, it would have been wrong. But do you think there was any effort in that on that front, or did they say, okay, the players have spoken, all bets are off, go home, and we'll see in a few months?
I don't think so, honestly. I think they would have tried to figure out how they could best make the show go on, because you've already invested, you've got the infrastructure, you've got the plan, etc. You've invested to try to keep a bubble. Whether they invested sufficiently, whether they fell short, whatever it is, you can argue that, but of course the goal was to make the show go on. I think they only called it, they got into that meeting the other day, yesterday, I guess it was at 12 noon, and they will only make a decision to cancel it, and they realize we cannot get this bubble back in control very quickly. I think after one or two cases, we said, all right. Then you said, then went to CSK, went to Hyderabad, went to Delhi. The teams, not the cities. Suddenly it becomes, okay, this is a little bit past what we can get under control. It's time to get everybody to safety and prioritize safety. So
And there were all sorts of random things happening. There were, I think, the Delhi team was practicing, or the CSK team. Somebody was practicing at a private members ground with no protocols in place. There were some guys that bookies had put in place with fake accreditation. I'm just like, dude, there's nobody allowed on the ground. You've still managed to get your guys fake
well,
accreditation
he
to
was
get
dressed as a
into the ground.
janitor, right? Or as a
Yeah,
cleaner.
it was a cleaner. Yeah,
And
yeah,
I guess that's the thing, because there's an 8-second delay
yeah.
between on live play and the broadcast. And yeah, if you can be, he had two phones. If you can be there, supposed to do some spot fixing, you know exactly what's happened. 8 seconds, you quickly maximize and make some money. It's crazy,
Yeah,
crazy
yeah, but
world.
is it spot fixing, or is it actually providing information to the bookie so that he can set the odds before the ball is bowled, right? Like
Correct. You're
you'll
right.
set
Sorry, it's
different
betting on the
odds.
outcome of the game,
Correct.
not necessarily spot. That's a really important clarification. Sorry, I was just saying it's not match fixing, meaning necessarily colluding with the players,
Mm.
which spot fixing is also. It's just betting on the outcome of the game and using the time lag to be able to predict what happens on the next ball, because you actually knew for. So
Yeah,
let's say,
because you can then say if you've heard the no ball siren go off, you can be like, okay, this one's going to be a no
yeah, then
ball
you
or
bet on the
whatever,
next
right?
ball being a no ball and make money. So
Yeah, yeah,
insane, just
intense,
insane.
intense. Anyway, crazy, crazy, crazy times, man. But um, this show must go on. The Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast must go on. I was thinking earlier this week, actually, like, man, we had a pretty random time last year with COVID and stuff, but we put an episode out every week, and we muddled our way through that, which was pretty cool, actually. We got some really cool guests on there, so if you haven't heard those, we even got Danny Morrison, Jaydev Anatkar, Jemima Rodriguez. Very cool. Go back and have a listen to that. But we are going to continue doing this show every week. We will be coming back every week, and we are to announce the SEAT Bat with Seat cricket bat winner, right, Ashwin, this week. Do you want to do the honors? I've sent you the
Sure.
screenshot of
Yeah,
the winner
sure.
and the winning
So
tweet.
we had a great competition running all through the month of April. We're giving away a bat. We had a winner in March as well. So the question was, which uncapped player has taken the maximum number of IPL wickets? Many of you got this right. There were some wrong answers too, I think. Great question, by the way. And the correct answer is Rajat Bhatia, also a former Delhi player. I don't think he was Delhi Capitals. He was Delhi Daredevils, though. So,
And KKR player for a long time. The guy
and
who actually
of
broke
course,
up the Gambhir Kohli fight is how he's popularly known
that's
as.
basically it. None of the bowling, none of the maximum number of wickets, but you're going to remember him for the Gambhir Kohli fight. So, anyway, we did a draw as we always do, and our winner is Ganesh Kamath Gurpur. So, GK at GK21175. I'm assuming that's on Twitter. Congratulations. It's a fantastic bat. We will get in touch with you, or if you, when you hear this, send us a message, get in touch with us. We will coordinate shipping details as soon as we can, obviously. But congratulations. So great bat with Seat contest for April, and we have another winner.
Yeah, and send us your Indian delivery address because I believe you're not based in India. So make sure you send us an Indian delivery address. And Ashwin, we've got to put out a question for May, man, because yeah, the IPL's suspended, but the World Test Championship is coming. The finals coming up next month. So my question, I've come up with this question literally on the spot, is who is the top scorer? Like who scored the most number of runs during the World Test Championship, during this round of the World Test Championship? Okay. So write in with the answer to that question with the hashtag BatWithSeat. Those on our Discord channel will actually know the answer because there was a great quiz that Vinay Minocha came up with on the quiz on the Discord channel, and the answer is actually on our Discord channel somewhere. So if you haven't joined that, please join that. But it's a really, really interesting answer to this. So actually, do write in with the answer. Hashtag BatWithSeat on Twitter, and that will be, we'll pick one lucky winner for the month of May. Ashwin, now last chance before the midway fantasy update, right? Do you want to do a quick fantasy update? And where did we all line up at the end of it?
Yeah,
How are we
pretty.
deciding this? Is it efficiency points? Because I had a lot of
Well,
transfers
that's
left,
a good
so
question. I did too, right? We all planned everything based
we all
on.
planned for the slog overs at the end, which never came.
Yeah, no, we should have gone big in the power play. So, I mean,
Yeah,
it's a tricky one. Our fan league, it will currently show the number one ranked player is Kurma, number 9 Dream, but only had 13 transfers left with half the tournament. So
yeah.
transfer efficiency
Mm.
of 114. Number 2 is Johnny Blazers, transfer efficiency of 194.2. So much
That's good.
ahead.
That's actually
Yeah.
very good. That's
Number
about the
3
same as me.
is Nattu by 11. Great team name. Transfer
Great name.
efficiency of 211.3.
Whoa, these guys are
So
awesome,
the
man.
next few transfer efficiencies a little bit lower, but hey, let's give credit to the points. Let's also just quickly go through the three hosts, shall we?
Yeah,
Are you
let's
guys
do it.
ready?
Let's do it.
In
I'm
spot in
tense now.
position number 20 is
Oh,
yours
because you
truly.
killed it with Joss.
I got to number 20. I had
Joss the
Joss
boss.
captain that
Universe
day.
Joss.
The Universe Joss was my captain. So very exciting. I don't know. How do I check my own transfer efficiency? That's
Must
confusing.
be on there.
It's not showing up on the board. So anyway, maybe you can pull up my transfer efficiency.
Yeah, I'm going to check it just now.
So I have 9,281 points. I had to scroll pretty far down. I think you guys were neck and neck, by the way. You are
Right.
sitting pretty in number 73. You just overtook Varun. You are 16 and a half points ahead of him with in 73rd place. Varun is
What's
in
the transfer
75th
efficiency,
place.
though?
So your transfer efficiency is 181.2.
Oh,
Oh,
that's okay.
wait, let's go again. Yeah, 181 point. I'm really not good at this. And then Varun's transfer efficiency is 160.4.
Oh, so that I'm clearly well
So
ahead
clearly
of
ahead of
him.
him. But help me find mine. Can you see mine?
Yeah, let me find yours. Let me find yours.
Why can't I see my
Lee,
own? Doesn't show me my own. Stats.
I've got
Home.
you.
Team.
Nera number one fan overall. Transfer efficiency 182.
Oh, I beat you by a point.
Ooh.
That's it. That's
Was
that's it.
mine 181.9?
181 point something. Let's see. Wait.
Oh, that's too sick.
Were you really
Man. Too
181?
sick.
Oh my gosh.
What was mine?
181.2. So I beat you by 8/10 of a point. That's plenty. I'm pretty happy.
That's
Well done.
it's like how England won the World Cup. Same.
This is not boundary count.
This
This
is
is
literally boundary
absolute.
count
This is
backfield.
absolute delta. I beat you by more.
This
And,
is boundary
wait, but
count
you had used a
backfield.
booster too. I hadn't used a booster, so that has to factor in too.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true.
Used no
That's true.
boosters. So
I actually used my booster in the last game. I got Shaker triple booster.
it was good play. You went 69, right? So well played.
Yeah, yeah, that's how I got past Varun as well.
Yeah. Anyway,
Awesome, but yeah, guys, that is the show. Varun and Ashwin will be back on Sunday, right? You guys are talking about the best and the worst of IPL 13 and a half. Should we call it
13 and a
IPL
half. Let's
13 and
call
a
it
half?
that.
Yeah.
Let's call it
Yeah,
that.
you'll be running down the movers and the shakers, the Sakarias, the Aveshes, the Harshals, the Devdats. It's going to be great. Actually, it's actually been a pretty power packed IPL. I mean, Pollard and Butler, like the old war horses, were really starting to come to the party. So, yeah, you guys will be doing best and worst, I guess. Plus, if I'm not wrong, the Bakwaskar awards are going to come through. So, I'm
That's the
looking forward
current
to
plan.
hearing
Let's see
those.
if we can pull it off.
I'll send you my nominations for those. But guys, that is the show. As always, write into us on edges and sledges at the rate of one tip one hand. We're at contact at one tip one hand.com. And yeah, we will be back. Like we're gonna come back on Monday, but then after that we're gonna go back to once a week. As you know, IPL time is where we do the midweek stuff. So keep listening to the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast. This is brought to you by Seat Tires. Stay home, stay safe, and drive safe, everyone. Um, although I find that driving safe doesn't quite correlate with staying safe and staying at home. So stay at home and stay safe. Um, enjoy the rest of the show, and we'll see you next week.